Okay, so what everyone is getting wrong about the Bernie Cenk endorsement issue, okay? And just let's go over this because everybody's kind of talked about it, and I just kind of want to give a more nuanced take on this because I feel like it's not nuanced thus far. So initially, Cenk said thank you to Bernie because Bernie endorsed him, and we can scroll on this Twitter feed and see pretty much that he quoted Bernie, I'm endorsing Cenk because he knows I know he will serve ordinary people, not powerful special interests. He is a voice that we are desperately in need of Congress and will be a great representative in California, CA 25 and the country. Okay, great. And then he goes on and talks about how great Cenk is and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so then Cenk, of course, thereafter, there was a situation that happened where there was a retraction. Right. And Bernie Sanders rescinded his endorsement, and Cenk kind of made it seem like he was the one that did it first. And I'm going to tell you that that's not the case. But he said, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the endorsements of Bernie Sanders, Ro Khanna, and Nina Turner, and local progressive groups that gave me their support. Their stance took real courage in the face of the corporate media and the Democratic establishment onslaught. And so then he goes on to say, I want to be free of any influence other than my voters of CA25. And so then he says he's not going to take any more endorsements, et cetera, et cetera. So he's saying, hey, I'm not going to take an endorsement, so I'm going to rescind my endorsement from Bernie Sanders. And so then this is what Bernie says. And he goes on to say, let me grab it really quickly. He goes on to say,
right below it, yeah. Cenk
Uygur has been a longtime fighter against corruption. However, our movement is bigger than any one person. I hear my supporters who were frustrated and understand their concerns. Cenk today said he is rejecting all endorsements for his campaign and retract my endorsement. So a lot of people had a problem with this tweet. This tweet is kind of cringe, and I agree with that. How do you feel about Bernie's retraction?
Well, we know this right away that this was an opportunity. Bernie's campaign definitely, I mean, my personal opinion, I'm sure you're going to speak more about it. Bernie's campaign said, listen, we have to rescind the endorsement. You want to get out in front of it? We'll give you the opportunity. Go ahead and do so. But we're going to do that. And that's what they did. There was definitely a collaboration when it came to this situation and stuff. Yeah. And the criticism that, some people have made against Bernie for flip-flopping on the situation, I understand it. I don't think he should have endorsed him in the first place. That's my personal opinion. And therein lies the problem with the Bernie Sanders campaign. Sometimes they're very reactionary and they have to walk it back. And some of the stuff they've done along this whole primary, I think sometimes comes into question, like, why did you do that? Like, who the hell is advising Bernie Sanders? Like, who's giving him this information? So I think that was a bad thing. Now, when it comes to Cenk and when it comes to Bernie, the other day people were going after Bernie as far as like some of his foreign policies. And I said, listen, I'll always have a spot in my heart for Bernie Sanders, and I played the Matt Orfalia video, the Beast Mode one, because he's the one who started this gangster stuff, right? He's the one who got us out there. So maybe he isn't as good on the issues when it comes to the issues that are most important to me as Tulsi Gabbard is, but I still have love for Bernie Sanders and whatnot. I kind of have that for Cenk in a way, except for Cenk committing the ultimate sin, which we're going to talk about. TYT started this stuff. Remember, they were the only ones out there. We had to go look for them. We had to look at Anna. We had to look. Emma started coming into play. Jordan before all of his bullshit nonsense.
They were doing great work. They were out there. What was it?
The 2015, 2016.
Standing
Rock. They were covering stuff like they're doing. It's kind of funny because I put this up the other day. They're doing the work they used to do now. We're doing like we're taking place. Like I'm looking around at the KDM convention. I don't see them. I'm looking around at the DA freaking debate. I don't see them. So they have gone a different way. So even though I have somewhat love and respect for Cenk, the fact that he took that friggin' money is the ultimate sin. So when he talks about, now corporate PAC money, this and that, but what about the money you took for your own friggin' business?
Right.
So no matter what, I don't think Bernie should have endorsed me because who he took the money from. That was his whole story. Cenk didn't sell out. He didn't take the MSNBC contract. He went and did his own thing. But there's been a lot of talk about this from the get-go, fam. From that get-go, that he's an opportunist.
Right. So while the more corrupt California establishment and centrists are manipulating identity politics to smear Cenk, and that's very real, Bernie should have never endorsed him because of the baggage and the current fair criticisms that both neoliberals and progressives have of him. So TYT, as Pasta mentioned, took money from Katzenberg, $20 million. When they did that, and as soon as they did that, their reporting changed. And we noticed it because I was an avid TYT watcher. They started promoting Russiagate. This is another thing that I could not forgive Cenk. And he just went on Jimmy Dore, and he's Jimmy's title of his show says Cenk has a new theory, but it's pretty much the same theory. He's still pushing that Donald Trump is a puppet of Putin.
Yeah.
And that's just not simply the case, okay? They also were promoting Warren, and he only endorsed Sanders right before he announced his run, which I saw as opportunistic. Then, of course, there are current work-related issues that other people have put on Twitter, ex-TYT people that had contracts and left or were working with them and left. And there's also, of course, this is a big one for a lot of Tulsi supporters, been a bias against Tulsi Gabbard from his team, and also, of course, specifically from Cenk, but more so than him from his team, because I honestly saw him be more fair to her than both Anna and Emma were, and that's something that I will give him credit for.
But that could be scripted. That could be like, you play the good cop, I'll play the bad cop.
Exactly. He's the boss.
Well, is he the boss?
Well, he was.
I mean, how much power does Anna have when it comes to that situation?
That was a new thing, right? Now she has.
Now she's.
But before then, I always thought she had a thing, a thing to say. You know what I'm saying? It's like kind of like what we do here. We're a team, right? We talk things through. There's not one person stronger than the other. I thought that was what was going on at TYT. However, the whole Tulsi kind of thing, good cop, bad cop, seemed very friggin' scripted in a way. I can't prove that whatsoever. But all of a sudden, they turn, Anna and Emma, who once said, it's like Joy Reid. They used to talk about Bernie being the most progressive. Now, then all of a sudden you get the contract. Bernie's not the most progressive.
Warren's more progressive.
Right.
Wow.
It's all about the money and who's your boss, who owns you. And so
yes, exactly.
This shows that Bernie's campaign, though, mishandled the situation and the fracturing of the staff, because some of them were obviously pro Bernie and some of them are obviously not. And there's a tweet by one of the grassroots, the director of the grassroots here in California, Melissa Byrne, it's a year-old tweet from 2018 where she talks about how Cenk is a sexist and blah, blah, blah. This is someone from Bernie's campaign. Simultaneously, there is Nina Turner and Ro Khanna saying, Cenk, you did well, blah, 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 etc. So there's obvious disagreements within the campaign, and that has been very, very clear. It also shows that Sanders did listen to progressive critiques, because he didn't just do it based on the accusations of sexism and blah, 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 and the racism, but it was also progressives that were very loud about their standing against Cenk as a progressive leader, because even though he is the most progressive in that race, because that woman, Christy Smith, is awful, they didn't really feel comfortable with him endorsing him. Now, some of the campaign did let themselves get influenced by the smears, clearly, but this wasn't an all or nothing situation. This was a very complex situation, so I agree with Pasta. He should have never endorsed anybody in that first place. And a source told me, close to the campaign, told me that Cenk was the first to rescind, that the campaign reached out to Cenk. It wasn't like Cenk did this and then the campaign. What Pastas said was true. Cenk came out and said this after he was contacted by the campaign. Of course, this is a whole PR move, and we get it, and this happens. But it was just the way it was handled. I agree with everybody that it was done in a very bad way. It made Bernie look weak.
Yeah.
And he's not. And this isn't Bernie. This is the campaign. And I want to make sure to say that, because this isn't the guy is running around doing town halls. I don't know if you saw him yesterday. He was live every other hour. He was live all day. And again, I just feel like he's going back to that very heavy schedule, and now he's coming to California, and AOC's coming, and all of this is high intensity, high gear until we get to the first primaries, and then California, which is California is it. It's it.
It's it.
And
so important. It's so important.
So this was in the long run. If this isn't dealt with within the campaign, if they don't get their act together, it is going to hurt Bernie in the long run. And I think, he can only do so much. He has to rely on the people around him. And I thought that was just a really bad call. I'm not a fan of Cenk, but I feel like the way they handled it, it just was a bad handling.
This has been a common, denominator too as well. It's been happening a lot of times. What the hell is the freaking campaign doing?
Mm-hmm.
What the hell is the campaign doing? And I think it's important we judge people for where they are today, not to where they once were. And I kind of felt like Bernie Sanders was still kind of holding on to what Cenk once was, when he was the pioneer, when he was the breakthrough, when he was the only network that was supporting him and supporting him only. Not to say that they aren't supporting him, but once again, they've changed. And you have to judge them by what they are and what they're doing now. And they are doing some of the most gross smears on Tulsi Gabbard, especially Anna, especially Emma.
Mm-hmm.
And it mirrors almost what happened to Bernie Sanders in 2015, 2016. And you have to recognize that. So the best thing to do is like, all right, listen, we're going to stay away from this and we're not going to endorse.
And that should have
anybody on
been
that
the
day.
action from the start. And
Exactly.
it would have avoided all of this situation.
No doubt. And I know damn well if you were running that fucking campaign, you would have said that same thing and be able to sell it in that room. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you guys like Cenk. I know you do. I know. But guess what? We have to stay away from this. This is a cancer pill we don't want to swallow. And now, worst comes to worst, and it happened, you make yourself look indecisive and stupid for the 1 foot in, the 1 foot out. We already had the leftover sent from Matt Orfalea, where a lot of people were like, dude, like, why are you doing this to Matt Orfalea? Yeah, he did something stupid. Number one, how come nobody found that out before you friggin' endorsed him and hired him, or just hired him? And secondly, if it was something he did at 19 years old, you can't forgive him for that and move on? So I
get it, especially of course when there are centrist kind of takes in the campaign that are paying attention to a lot of this optics is what I would say. You as a politician, you have to look at optics. It's something that you just have to always look at. And obviously, people weren't in agreement, and then it went that way. But again, I want to say that this isn't Bernie's fault. This is the team kind of mishandling the situation, and I just feel like it could be better handled. I think there are valid criticisms of Cenk Uygur, but I feel like the way this was taken was just not the best way. So that's
I hope he fires these people after the primary. If he wins the primary and he's not cheated, he will win the primary if he's not cheated. And I hope he fires them, really, because he needs to. Once again, he's on the wrong track when it comes to these things. I keep bringing up the whole Kashmir situation. Once again, whether you pick a side or not, that's not the way you handle it. He should have been pressing for both sides to sit down and work this thing out, not just choose one side, especially in an area where you're not even talking about, you don't have a lot of knowledge in it. It's obvious, but the way you handle these things politically, you got to handle them right. And the campaign has put him in his foot in hot water too many times, fan. Fayez, Matt Dust, these guys, I don't like these guys at all. I wish he would shake these guys because they are not good for Bernie. And if they do another screw up like this, it might cost them even more.
Absolutely.
Stop looking indecisive. That was one of the things why Jeremy Corbyn didn't get elected this weekend, and we'll talk about that.